Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 397 of A Yank on the Footy. I'm Craig Wessels, coming to you from steamy, sticky Sandusky, Ohio. And thanks for checking out this episode. We're going to jump into the tips for round 15. And I also want to spend a little bit of time today chatting about the results from the listener survey that have been submitted as well. You're certainly more than welcome to still fill that out. I'd love for you to fill that out if you haven't done so already. The link is in the show notes if you would like to do that. But I did want to go through the responses that I did get thus far to kind of give you a little bit of a pulse on what other listeners are saying about the podcast. And I'm not going to reveal names or anything like that, but I got some great responses. I think I got some really good constructive criticism as well. Now, before we do that, the one, I guess, big piece of news this week, of course, Kazi Pickett is signing his new deal that's going to keep him in the blue and red for the foreseeable future, the next decade, I believe. An awful lot of money for him, but Dees, you must know what you're doing there. So also this weekend, Friday morning, my time, and I'll be up to watch this one. Paddy Dangerfield will be playing game 350 of his career. And Geelong is doing something, and I hear people talking about, I saw this on social media. They're doing what they're calling a whiteout. I guess they're giving out 40,000 white t-shirts at the game. And it kind of makes sense because you're not necessarily going to, to have a significant number of Brisbane supporters, I would think, coming to GMHBA Stadium. But I did see some people complaining about that this was kind of an Americanization of footy here, because there are a lot of, like, especially college football teams here in the United States that will do this sort of thing. And I did put a link to one particular team, Pennsylvania State University, which is the next state to the east of where I live. And they are known as the Nittany Lions. Now, I don't know what a Nittany is. I know what a lion is, but it looks like a panther or a cougar, that sort of thing. But this stadium seats well over 100,000 people. And sometimes during their night games, they will have what they call a whiteout, where almost everybody in the crowd wears a white shirt of some sort. And it's just a phenomenal sight. And I did put a little video clip in the show notes for you if you want to check to see how that works. So I think it's pretty cool that the Cats are doing this. Is it going to be intimidating? Is this a garment version of the Adelaide Crows flex during the grand final? Lord, I hope not. But I do want to wish Paddy Dangerfield the absolute best in game 350 and going forward, of course. But it's just kind of cool to see him reaching that milestone. We'll get into my thoughts on that game here in a little bit, but just thought it was interesting that there were some folks that were lamenting the idea that footy was borrowing ideas from American sport here. And well, I mean, I don't think we have exclusive rights here to go ahead and just decide, well, yes, everybody here is going to wear the same color. That's an American thing. I mean, I thought we were a rather diverse society here. Yes, college stadiums or even professional sports stadiums, you'll often see much of the population in the stands wearing similar colors, that sort of thing, but they don't always match up. But they try to ensure that they have continuity in situations like this, because the aesthetics on television, and that's why I hope you'll check out the little video clip, because it's really cool to see what it looks like on video when you've got about 110,000 people at a college stadium. I think it's around 110, maybe a little less in what they call Happy Valley. There's Happy Valley. Yeah. But I wanted to get into the survey results and talk a little bit about what I got from these results and what people were thinking about the podcast. And for those of you who have responded, I truly appreciate you taking the time to respond. If you haven't yet, I do hope you'll also, take a couple of minutes to tell me what you think about the show. Leave me a review over on my website at yankonthefooty.com. The link for the survey is in the show notes as well, and that's run right through my website as well. Um, so I asked questions on like, who was your, what was your favorite? First of all, um, in general, do you think that let's start there. Let's say first of all that in general, do you think that a Yank on the Footy is getting better, worse, or has stayed the same? And 70% of the listeners have said that it's getting better. 20% saying it stayed the same, and 10% saying that it's gotten worse. And for the listeners who said that, I apologize. I'm working at trying to get it better. I've been these last several months have been very trying for me, and I've had even less time to devote to the podcast than I would like to be able to. Why do they, and I asked, why do you, please elaborate why you feel that way. I like the addition of Australian guests. Your preview episodes are getting better, I think. Um, I guess, and somebody said then is, I guess you get more familiar with the sport over time. Your knowledge and comments from a different perspective become more interesting. As your knowledge of the people, history, and game improves, your insights become more interesting, especially coming from a non-AFL background perspective. Special guest interviews are a highlight. The more, the better. The preseason club previews are also a highlight. Both of these are great and a point of difference compared to other AFL podcasts. Collaborative efforts with other podcasts are a good idea. Somebody then said, "You're doing a great job. I love your passion for the game and your intricate knowledge." I'd like to think that I have, growing intricate knowledge. I don't, again, I've said this many times and I will say it again. I'm never going to be so bold as to say that I know more about a game you've been following for a lifetime that I've only been following really since 2016, 2017. I'm never going to be so bold as to say that I know more than you do because I don't. Okay? I don't. And at this point in time in my life, I don't know more about Major League Baseball than baseball fans today because I recognize very few names anymore that are playing the game. Um, Now, what was your favorite episode, your guest interview? Now I've had a wide margin here. Saints, when I had the folks on from Saints TV, John Klug. Enjoy listening to Mick Aussie's take on the games, and Mick has been great. And as I said in a recent episode, Mick has been a wonderful friend of the podcast. He's been an absolute joy to have on here. Just the way my schedule has worked out recently, I've not been able to match up times with him. And of course, he's been in Europe here recently for the Australia and South Africa cricket. And I believe he's currently in Ireland right now and checking out some of his favorite establishments, also taking some tours and that sort of thing. I like listening to the U.S. fans and USFL crew. Um, Now, this, Mick, and once somebody said Mick was crazy but very direct. Um, I don't know if he's crazy. I would use the word passionate. Mick is passionate. Mick is not afraid to share his feelings. Okay. Um, and I do not see that to be a character flaw by any stretch of the imagination. And one that I really enjoyed here and I'm so glad somebody mentioned this one. Um, Michael Gallus episodes, especially the first couple when he was retelling the story of coaching the Pakistan men's and women's teams. And that actually goes on. And why was that episode your favorite one? Yeah, and then somebody seemed more knowledgeable and polished than the rest because I got him on. It was John Klug, somebody who mentioned John Klug. They helped get him on the podcast. But then getting back to Michael Gallus, and I said this a long time ago as well, and I think it would just be a really good feel good film. Um, so why was Michael Gallus your episode or guest? The story of coaching Pakistan's women's team was fascinating and inspiring. Then the following episode where he told the story of coaching the Pakistan men's team to victory in the Asia Cup, it's movie script worthy. Now, I don't disagree with that. Okay. I don't disagree with that. I think that is absolutely the case. Now, is Hollywood going to make that film? Probably not. I think it would have to be an Australian film company that would make that film. Um, if the right person learns about this story, it's a feel-good Aussie against the odds sports comedy movie waiting to happen. Um, Now, and I did ask, I'm not going to delve too far into these, but I said, what was your least favorite episode or guest on the podcast? Well, let's just say that more than a couple people said anything dealing with Collingwood. Okay. Uh, so I, I don't want to, and again, I'm not, I don't sledge on clubs. Okay. I don't, I love to give Carlton a hard time, and it's petty on my part. I know that. Okay. It's very petty on my part, but I just I like to kind of poke fun at them. Um, and who knows when Michael Voss decides to step down or has decided for him that he's stepping down as the senior coach at Carlton, then that little grudge may be gone. Okay. Um, is there anything you would like to mention that about a Yank on the Footy, things that you enjoy, don't enjoy, etc.? Love the trivia. I myself versus your guest, new players to look out for. I love when Craig throws in a little cricket talk. And speaking of that, the uh, the first week of the Major League Cricket season here in the United States has come and gone. I believe they played 8 matches in Oakland, California, which is right across San Francisco Bay from the city of San Francisco. And this was a former stadium that the Oakland Athletics Major League Baseball team and the Oakland Raiders of the NFL played in the stadium. So by baseball standards, it was a huge surface area because the what was called the foul territory. If you know anything about baseball, it has, the field is kind of shaped where it has lines that come back and come to a point at home plate. But then when you're hitting the ball, it has to be within those lines for it to be considered a fair ball. But the foul territory outside of those lines was larger in Oakland than any other major league park in the United States, one that was a multi-use stadium. So there were a lot of sixes hit there. Okay. And was there an excessive amount hit there? I don't know. Now they're headed to Texas next, to Grand Prairie, Texas, for the next series of about 8 or 10 games there. Then they're going to be going down to Florida for another series of 8 or 10 games. And then the finals, I believe, because this is about a 6-week tournament, the finals will be back in Texas, I believe in the middle of July, if I'm not mistaken. Um, bring back, somebody said, bring back the My Favorite Game episodes where people talk about their most memorable games. I would love to do that. Okay. And that's where I have to ask you to reach out to me because I can't go to, the fourth person on my email list and go, hey, I know what your favorite game is. Let's come on and talk about it. I need you to reach out to me and tell me about your favorite game so we can set something up and chat about that. Because to me, it's telling me and it's telling the listeners why you love this game and why that one is the one you're never going to be able to forget. And maybe your club didn't win that game. Maybe it was a game where you kicked the game-winning goal at the local level. You were playing, under 10s or something like that. I'd still love to hear from you about that. So if you have a most memorable game or a favorite game, I would certainly love that. So the person that filled out that part of the survey, I thank you for that because I really would like to get back to doing that because I love telling the stories of everyday people. Yeah, sure. I've been thrilled to have Darren Bennett and Ricky Nixon and John Klug and premiership players on the podcast, and I would love to get more of them. And Barry Cheatley as well, and I cannot forget about Mr. Cheatley. Um, but I love telling your stories as well, and part of that is, I guess, me dropping the ball because I've not been as assertive in terms of trying to get those responses from you. Now, somebody did then say, keep doing what you're doing, maybe encourage more listener correspondence, and then hopefully you'll have enough material through the listener response. Fans love to hear their correspondence on the show. So, I would love to hear from you. So, if you shared your comments with me, I would love to include those in episodes. Okay. So, and we may go ahead and try one of those tonight with this episode here. And I'm going to just jot myself a note here real quickly while I'm thinking about this. Um, and I'll mention that at the end here. But yeah, that's a great point. Do I have plans for more preview and tips show episodes with special guests and co-hosts? Love to hear some more of those collaboration episodes. I absolutely would. A lot of people do the tips each week. I understand that. Okay. My bread and butter, if you will. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and just say it now. If you're watching on video, my toast and Vegemite, um, is doing interviews. Okay. I love talking to people about this game. It helps me to learn more about it. It helps to grow my appreciation of it. And it helps to give me the ability to have them share their story because maybe they've never had a format or an outlet to do that. Okay. I think that's a great idea there. Somebody mentioned, I'd like you to form your own panel from the US or other countries other than Australia. And I've got a couple people, they mentioned Paulo from Brazil. Um, that would be a great option. Bringing Donnie in. There's a gentleman that lives in Argentina that I correspond with quite a bit as well. And if we're able to coordinate that, I think that would be awesome. Um, that would be a terrific thing to be able to do there. Um, now, I asked what kind of other podcasts people listen to. They listen to a lot of sports, some Will Schofield from West Coast, quite a bit as well. Um, Sounding Board's one of people's favorites. A couple of people said that my podcast is their favorite. And I'll be honest, I find that extraordinarily humbling. Okay. Because I'm doing this on a shoestring budget. I'm doing it by myself. I'm in a closet right behind this flag right here is a spare bedroom in my house. Okay. Um, so when we have guests, I have to move out of here. But you know, somebody, again mentions the whole correspondence thing where I get feedback from you. Okay. And I would love that. I really would. I would love to hear your thoughts. Okay. And there are spots on my website to allow you to do that sort of thing, whether it be in audio form or in written form, through a comment or reaching out by email at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com or on any of my socials at yank_on over on X or the Yank on the Footy podcast on Facebook and Instagram as well. So if you've got things that you would need to that you would want to share, I would love to be able to share your message with the listeners as well. So um I and I got a wide margin, wide group of people that are, that in terms of their support of their club and that sort of thing as well. A lot of people that are listening to history podcasts as well. I listen to a lot of those. I listen to some political ones, a lot of true crime as well. Um, I probably listen to more podcasts than I do listen to music, and I listen to a lot of music as well. And I'm all over the map as far as music goes. But for those of you who took the time to fill out the survey, I thank you for that. Now, I do want to, I guess, and maybe this could be our first question, okay, where I ask for your response on this. Okay, so here's your challenge. Here's your challenge then. Um, is the final eight set? Are 8 teams playing finals in the 8 right now? Yes or no? And if not, who's coming in and who's dropping out? Who's coming in and who's dropping out? I'm not going to ask if our top 4 are set. I'm not going to ask that yet because when you go back and you look at the ladder, there are there's clubs that are sitting on the outside that are close to being finals because right now the Bulldogs are outside of the 8, and I think they may find their way there. Okay, I think they may find their way there. Got a very good club, and now that Sam Darcy's back, which we'll talk about in a moment, that could certainly work out well for them. So I truly appreciate all of your input on this. Okay. And this is going to sound callous, but I don't know how to word it otherwise than to say I'm taking it under advisement. And that just sounds so cold, but I'm kind of figuring out, well, how do I incorporate these things? Okay. How do I do this to make the podcast better than what it happens to be right now? And Do I think it's a great podcast? I think it's okay. I think it's okay. I've kind of struggled to get back into my niche as we've talked about with everything that's going on in my family health wise and such, and um and my health and my mental health has not been the best either. I'm sitting here, kind of I don't want to say I'm feeling sorry for myself necessarily, but I'm just looking at I look at the fixture here and I think that we're going into round 15, and round 19 was when I was planning on being this year because it's going to be 19 through 22 because I was going to get to see the Cats play the Saints, the Roos, Port Adelaide, and Essendon. Um, so am I feeling sorry for myself? Maybe a little bit, but am I looking forward to next year? Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm still working my butt off at my summer job. I'm walking an average of about 10 and a half miles a day over there, which is, I think, about 17 or 18 kilometers, give or take. So 5 days a week, I'm averaging about 16 to 17 kilometers a day while I'm at work. Not too bad for somebody who's going to be 62 here in about 2 weeks. Not bad at all. So there's the results from the survey. I want to thank you for um, submitting your responses there. It's still open. If you've got some advice, if you've got some inputs and things on how the show could be better, what you like about it, what you think I should change, please don't hesitate to reach out. Okay. And don't forget about the question, is our eight set? Are our 8 teams that are playing finals in the eight right now? Yes. Or if not, who's coming in and who's going out? Okay. So let's go ahead and jump into the tips for this week. I did go 4-3 last week. I missed out on the Crows, the Lions, and the D's. And I'm just listening outside the window here. It is absolutely pouring rain here right now. It's coming down in buckets at the moment. Fremantle hosts Essendon. The Dockers, they've won 4 in a row. Essendon has lost 3 in a row. These are two ships that have passed in the night. Okay. I don't see Essendon recovering this year. Their plight to try to win a final continues. Okay. Fremantle is starting to look like the club that I thought they were going to be this year. Because remember, I tipped them to play finals this year. I tipped them to be in the grand final this year against the Cats. Okay. I think Essendon's injury list is just too difficult for them to overcome to truly be competitive against a club like Fremantle. So I'm going with the Dockers to win this one by 17. And then we got Geelong hosting Brisbane in Paddy's 350th. Only 2 points separate these two clubs on the ladder. Brisbane has struggled a little bit lately. They've dropped 3 out of their last 5, but only by an average of 9 points. So they've lost 3 games by a total of 27 points. It's not exactly earth-shattering. Now, you could argue they should have won those games, especially the last 2, because their goal kicking was, what's the word I'm looking for? Atrocious. Okay, their goal kicking was atrocious. I mean, the Lions beat the Cats earlier, ironically, by 9 points. Yeah, the Lions could certainly win this game. I'll be frustrated if they win it, but I won't be shocked if they win it. Okay. I think the atmosphere of the whiteout in Geelong is going to help the Cats over the line. I'm going with the Cats to win by 11 points here. Okay. Okay, I had to take a slight break there because we have tornado warnings going on in the eastern part of the county where I live, which is about 10 to 12 miles away from me and heading in the opposite direction. So we are out of the line of fire for these tornadoes here. So again, I'm going to go with the Cats to win by 11 points. And then we move on to Carlton and North Melbourne. And Carlton is going to be without Harry Mackay, possibly without Charlie Curnow. And we're at a point right now where North is starting to play a little bit better football. They've lost 4 of their last 7, but only by an average of a goal. They've been in a lot of these games. Okay. They've also won 2 out of their last 4 here. Yeah, I know I tipped them to play finals this year. Maybe I was a year early on that. Okay. Maybe I was a year early. That being said, I think they can play spoiler. So they're gonna actually do a good job at hindering Carlton's finals hopes this year, or putting a damper on them, or raining on them like it's doing outside my house right now. I'm actually going to go with North Melbourne to beat Carlton this weekend by 9 points. Okay. I just think Carlton, They've got a lot of injuries. North Melbourne is starting to play a little bit better football. They haven't gotten the wins. I think this is one they're going to be able to get, though. Okay. And then we head to the Adelaide Oval for Port Adelaide hosting Sydney. And the Power, if they've won their last two, are they going to be able to turn things around and play finals? I don't know. They've got to make up a ton of percentage if they want to play finals. They've got to really start stringing some wins together here. Um, think about this. Go just divest yourself from 2025 and go back to 2024 and round 15, Port Adelaide and Sydney. Would you have considered this to be a marquee matchup? I think most of us would. I mean, there are a lot of people that like to sledge on Port Adelaide. And when's Kenny going? Well, he's going this year. But this was a club, this was a game that these two clubs were ones that were going to be playing finals. And, Port struggled this year. Sydney's injury list has just absolutely hamstrung them this year. They have been very, very unable to go ahead and put together any kind of semblance of a good season here. So I guess I have to wonder a couple things. One, did Port Adelaide, I think you could certainly make an argument one way or the other on this one. Did Port Adelaide keep Kenny Hinckley around 1 year too long? And secondly, does Sydney get a mulligan for this season with all the injuries they've had, with the decimation that they have had injury-wise? Do they get a mulligan? Okay. I think it's going to be a competitive game, but since it's in Adelaide, I'm going with Port Adelaide to win this one by about 10 points. I just think Sydney's struggles continue. Port Adelaide has just enough to get over the line here. I think Errol Goulden is back this week, but that's not going to be enough for them. Okay. And then we get to Collingwood hosting St. Kilda. And Saints have dropped 7 out of 9. I had to go back and double check that because I didn't think that they'd fallen off that poorly, but they really have. Many of them in really ugly fashion. I mean, blowouts. Okay. They started out 3-1, knocked off the Cats earlier this year. Yeah. This is a club that I think I had them in my 8 this year, if I'm not mistaken. But it's not getting any better for them because if you look at their fixture upcoming here, okay, 4 out of the next 5 weeks, Magpies, Dockers, Hawks, Geelong. You talk about running through an abattoir, which always reminds me of the old sketch from Monty Python and Monty Python's Flying Circus, where they were trying to build a group of flats, and this guy was somebody who designed slaughterhouses, designed abattoirs. The Magpies, they keep defying the calendar. Okay. This is one of the oldest sides that's ever played the game. And again, a couple players have skewed that number up rather high. They're playing some of the best footy they've played since their premiership year. And I'll admit it again, mea culpa. I was wrong about this club. I was wrong about them. It's been a terrific performance on their part. Okay. Still wish Scott Pendlebury would actually be able to lay eyes on the southern side of Werribee at one time in his life before he retires, though. Okay. Collingwood's going to win this one by 25. I don't think it's going to be close. I think it's actually going to be larger point differential than that, but I'm going to go with 25 here. And then we've got GWS hosting the Gold Coast. The Giants, they got a big win against the Lions last week. The kind of all over the place Giants and Lions in terms of goal kicking. Gold Coast is coming off their bye. They got the bad taste of that loss against the Cats out of their mouth. The Giants, they've lost Sam Taylor for the next 4 to 6 weeks. Brent Daniels is going to be out. Stephen Cornelio still not back. Toby Green's coming back off an injury. Not sure if Jake Stringer's going to be there. Kieran Briggs is going to be out. The Suns are relatively healthy. Okay. And I think the Suns are actually going to get a win on the road here off the bye week. A little bit more rested, a little bit more able to focus on what they need to get accomplished here to play finals for the first time. I'm going with Gold Coast to win this one by 11. Okay. And then we get to the last game of the round, and that is the Western Bulldogs hosting Richmond. The Bulldogs got Sam Darcy back last week. God, Bulldogs fans, enjoy the next dozen years because it is going to be so much. And if you're a footy fan, enjoy watching Sam Darcy play football. because it is going to be a joy as a Bulldogs fan and a heartbreak for clubs who are playing against him and them for the next 12 years or so. Okay. Just a phenomenal, phenomenal, talented kid. And yes, he's got a lot of size. That certainly does help. But damn, he does things really, really well. I know they keep tossing that term unicorn around. Okay. And it is, you know, I think it's accurate there. The Tigers have lost 6 out of 7. At this point, they're doing little more than, getting games into their youngsters, the ones who are healthy. I think the Bulldogs are going to win this by a comfortable margin. I've got them winning it by about 28 points on this one here. Okay, so there's my tips. All right, you'll have to let me know what you think. Let me know how you feel about that. Don't forget the question. Okay, I would love to hear back from you about this. I'm issuing a challenge to you. Okay, and I will put this out there as well. I am off from work, my summer job, Tuesday and Wednesday of next week, which would basically be like Wednesday or Thursday for all of you. Again, I believe I'm right now 15 hours behind Melbourne. So if you've got a most memorable game, please drop me an email at ayankonthefooty@gmail.com. Reach out to me on one of my socials. Tell me about that game a little bit. I'd love to set something up with you. Now I'm available in some mornings. I get home from my summer job after all that walking, usually around midnight, and I end up getting to bed at about 2 a.m. and I get up at around 8 a.m. I don't sleep a lot. I'm a big fan of caffeine. Um, Probably not the healthiest thing for me, but it is nonetheless. So if you got a most memorable game, I'd love to hear about it. Okay. That question also, is the 8 set? Yes. Or if your answer is no, who's coming in and who's going out? Who's not going to be part of the 8? Okay. So I'd love to hear from you on that. Remember, you can find everything about my podcast over at the website, ayankonthefooty.com. I do hope you'll subscribe to the mailing list there. Please tell your friends about it. Okay. Send them a link. Send them the website. Tell them about your favorite episode. Tell them about the guests that you've enjoyed having on there. Okay. Um, Leave a review. That'd be a huge help as well. Okay. If you want to help out the podcast financially, you can certainly do that with that buy me a coffee button there as well. That all goes back into keeping this one running. And again, if you got an idea for a guest, hopefully it's you, drop me a note. All my socials are in my show notes of every single episode. Okay. And remember, when you're on that mailing list, the new episodes come out to your inbox as soon as they're available. All right. Folks, look out for one another. Talk to your friends if you need to. Reach out to them. If you need to speak to somebody, those phone numbers are in every episode's show notes. Please don't hesitate to reach out because the world's a much better place with you in it. Okay. Don't be afraid to share your feelings. All right. I know I talked, I think, last week about how I think that the AFL needs to have a mental health round. I mean, I think that'd be it. There's a second question right there. Say, there's our second question there. Should the AFL also have a mental health round to go along with things like the Sir Douglas Nichols round and the like? Okay. I know we had the farm round or whatever they call it last week with Essendon and Geelong. Of course, Mason Cox always thought that the farm round was the round where Collingwood had to go play up against GWS. But look out for your friends, folks. Okay, check up on them. Go get that coffee. Go have a beer with them if that's what you choose to do. All right. Um, and as always, ladies and gentlemen, may your dribble kick never hit the post. But since we're talking a little bit of cricket as well, may your googly also hit the off leg wicket. Okay. I appreciate the kind support. And until next time, cheers and goodbye.